Have you ever found yourself losing your peace because of someone else? A snide comment, a look of disdain, a behavior that seems designed just to test your patience. And then, before you realize it, you've been emotionally captured. Your chest tightens, your jaw clenches, and your mind turns into an internal courtroom, judging the other person and yourself without rest. The big question is, why do we put our well-being in the hands of those who don't care about it? And more, is there a way to remain firm, even in the face of the subtlest provocations? Imagine living in a state where no criticism has the power to hurt you, where your serenity doesn't depend on traffic, your boss's rudeness, or other people's immaturity. This isn't a modern fairy tale or a shallow self-help promise. It's an ancient practice, shaped by minds like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. Men who faced betrayal, exile, and deep loss and still didn't surrender to their lowest impulses. They discovered what few today have the courage to admit. The root of our irritation is not in others, but in our illusion of control. What you're about to hear isn't a magic formula, but a hard and liberating truth. No one has the power to make you angry. That's right, no one. Irritation doesn't come from the outside. It's allowed from within. And until we understand this, we'll remain like leaves in the wind, reacting to everything and everyone. But if you're ready to flip that switch, this video is for you. Because when you learn to master yourself, the world loses the power to knock you off balance. And that's where true Stoic freedom begins. A large part of our frustration comes from an invisible root: expectation. We expect people to understand us clearly, to be fair, to treat us with respect. But Epictetus warned, it's not what happens to us that disturbs us, but how we interpret what happens. Every time we feel offended, it's because someone broke a script that only existed in our minds. And the most curious part? We never shared that script with anyone. In other words, we get hurt not because of what the other person did, but because we expected them to be different. It's like trying to hold the wind with your hands. Frustrated, you blame the wind for not letting itself be controlled. That's how we live when we think others must change so that our peace remains intact. Stoicism, however, proposes a complete turnaround. Stop trying to shape the world to your will and start preparing your soul to accept the world as it is. In this sense, irritation reveals a soul still trapped in the illusion that life must meet our desires. The true wise person doesn't revolt against human nature, because they understand that none of this is personal. It's all part of life's imperfect flow. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should wake up each day ready to encounter ungrateful, arrogant, and selfish people. Not with bitterness, but with awareness. Each person acts from their own worldview, and that has nothing to do with our worth. True freedom begins when we stop letting ourselves be affected by those who don't, yet know how to act better. And this choice, though simple, requires courage. The courage to take full responsibility for our inner state. Nothing reveals more about a person than what hurts them. When someone bothers you, you're not seeing them, you're seeing yourself. What irritates us in others' behavior often points to something we reject or fear in ourselves. When someone ignores you and you become furious, it's not because their silence destroys you, but because on some level, you still don't feel worthy of attention. The other person just lit the fuse. The fire was already burning inside. Stoic wisdom invites us to make a radical move. Turn every discomfort into an opportunity for self-knowledge. Instead of reacting instinctively, the wise observe. They ask, what is this showing me about myself? And in that moment of silence, they gain distance from the impulse and dive into their own essence. That's where true strength is born. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that understands. Because when we stop interpreting everything as an attack, the world stops being a war and becomes a school of awareness. Epictetus said, if someone insults me, it's up to me to decide whether it's an insult. It sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. The power to give new meaning to every experience is always in our hands. The other person may raise their hand, but it's you who decides whether to be hurt. The noise outside only echoes if there's something fragile inside. And little by little, we stop reacting as victims and start acting as masters of ourselves. The true Stoic triumph isn't about transforming the world, but becoming invulnerable to it. To be truly free is to be emotionally independent from everyone. Most people live chained to invisible expectations, that others will be kind, that they'll value us, that they'll reciprocate. But the wise person doesn't beg for recognition. They already recognize themselves. They don't demand external justice. They cultivate justice within. And when that happens, something shifts. No one can steal your peace anymore. Visualize an inner fortress not made of stone but of clarity. Each brick is a conscious decision, not to take things personally, not to crave what's out of your reach, not to corrode yourself with things beyond your control. The world can provoke, accuse, shout, but the soul of the wise remains calm, not out of coldness but out of wisdom. They know where their control ends, and so they live in peace. True strength doesn't react. It observes, understands, and transcends. That's why Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, remained faithful to humility. He wrote reminders to himself, "Do not let your soul be tainted by anger." The empire could crumble, but he protected the empire of his own mind. Because in the end, what's truly ours is how we choose to respond. Everything else is just scenery. When someone hurts us, we think pain is the enemy. But to the Stoics, it's a teacher. It shows us where we're still fragile, where we seek validation, where we still don't belong to ourselves. And instead of fleeing, the wise listen to pain and turn the wound into growth. Irritation ceases to be an obstacle and becomes a compass, pointing us toward where we need to evolve. Most people flee with distractions, blame, or revenge. But the Stoic path demands full presence. When anger comes, we don't deny it. We don't repress it, but we also don't obey it. We face it. And in that conscious gaze, we strip it of its power. Only what's unconscious can dominate us. Consciousness, even if painful, sets us free. When we accept pain without judgment, something dissolves. You stop carrying unnecessary burdens. The soul becomes lighter, clearer, fairer. Life stops being a battlefield and becomes an art of discernment. And what once would have wounded you now becomes a sign of emotional maturity. Maybe the greatest Stoic lesson is the simplest. No one can steal your peace without your permission. Life can be hard, people may fail, but your mind can be invincible. Seneca said, "No one lives in peace if they care about others' opinions." The secret isn't to change others, it's to free yourself from expecting them to be different. When you understand this, the game changes. You stop being reactive and become the author of your own life. Instead of putting out other people's fires, you rebuild yourself in silence every day. And then, it doesn't matter what people say, do, or fail to do because you are already whole. Anger, resentment, bitterness. All these ghosts vanish before an awakened mind, and now only one choice remains. Continue being a hostage to others' actions, or become the master of your serenity. Stoicism isn't a theory to admire. It's a practice to live. And you can start right now. And whenever someone tries to steal your peace, remember, the key was never with them. It was always with you. Everything that once threw you off balance, harsh words, cold stares, provocative actions, now appear as silent tests of your emotional maturity. True peace isn't the absence of conflict, but the presence of clarity. It's not the world that needs to change for us to be calm. It's we who need to wake up to the fact that we're reacting as prisoners to things we could simply observe. And when we see that, something in us changes forever. Every time you felt irritated was a reminder that something needed healing. The other person was just the trigger, the discomfort, the arrow pointing inward. From now on, you can choose to stop being a thermometer of external situations and become a constant flame, steady, present, unshakable. This is the art of living with reason. This is the freedom of those who decide to master themselves even in the midst of chaos. Returning to the words of Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius is not nostalgia, it's resistance. In a world that teaches us to react, the Stoic teaches us to reflect. While the world points fingers, the wise turn their eyes inward, and those who understand themselves find peace. And now I leave you with a question that could change everything, if you have the courage to reflect on it. How many more times will you let others dictate the climate of your soul? If this question touched something inside you, then this message has fulfilled its mission. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment what awakened you the most. Subscribe to continue this journey. And remember, the world outside is loud, but the true master is the one who learns to listen to the silence within.